All right, I think we're about ready to get started. My name is Dr. Kirsten Lynn. I'm with Direct Care Physicians of Pittsburgh. And one of the things that we love in Direct Care Physicians of Pittsburgh is to focus on preventive health and not just to react to poor health when that happens. And one of the really important ways to do that is to focus on nutrition because what we're putting into our body is so important. With that said, I celebrate the holidays just like everybody else here. And I know that it is easy to kind of eat one too many cookies or, go for seconds or thirds at dinner on holiday dinners. And so I am very excited to be joined today by Devon Kroesche, who is a registered dietitian and director of marketing with Case Specific Nutrition, because she's going to give us some tips about how to stay healthy with your nutrition over the holidays, and also how not to be very anxious about it. I just was with a patient earlier today who said to me, well, I just expect to gain 5 or 10 pounds over the holidays. And I said, well, I think you can still have a great holiday and not have that expectation. So anyway, I'm very excited to hear Devon's tips because I'm sure that I have a lot to learn as well. And so with all that, I will turn that over to Devon and take it away.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lynn, and thank you both Dr. Lynn and Dr. Gentile for inviting me and introducing me today. Eating around the holidays is a topic I am super passionate about. I've been spending the last few weeks talking about it ad nauseum with all of my clients, and I think we kind of came up with a few good strategies for eating around the holidays in a way that you can actually enjoy them, but also not feel overstuffed and bloated and lethargic by the end of it and just craving a salad. And so with that, these tips are really more mindset focused. What I see a lot of the time is that it's not necessarily what they're eating around the holidays that can cause some of these issues. It's more how you're eating them. And so we'll dig into that today. I've got some of my best tips. So as Dr. Lynn already introduced me, my name is Devon Kroesche. I am a registered dietitian with Case Specific Nutrition. I like to think of myself as your nutrition navigator because really this is your journey and I'm just really here to walk you through it. I want to help you figure out how to navigate this holiday season. I know it can be really hectic. Oftentimes nutrition falls really low on the priority list, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a complete wash. You can still enjoy it and eat healthily through the holidays. And you really can even continue to make progress towards your health and wellness goals during this time while enjoying the process. This is one of my favorite comics from the New Yorker. I don't know about you guys around this Thanksgiving, but it's like every year there's a new dietary restriction, right? You've got the vegan, you've got the person that's allergic to gluten, you've got the lactose intolerant, you've got someone trying to follow a low sodium diet. So, I mean, my grandparents are just wrought with anxiety over all these dietary restrictions. I'll tell you myself, I've been a vegetarian for about 12 years. So they've gotten pretty hip to plant-based Thanksgiving for me. But I just think this is kind of funny. Okay. Whoa. Gosh, sorry. So these are my 6 tips for a healthy, but most importantly, a happy holiday from a registered dietitian. I know a registered dietitian is not always the first person you want to hear from a few days after Thanksgiving, but I hope that these tips can be helpful to you. So tip number 1 is to abandon the scarcity mindset. So how can we eliminate the sense of urgency around food? What I often tend to see, especially maybe about halfway through the holiday season, sometimes between Thanksgiving and Christmas, if you celebrate it, is thinking already about the New Year diet. Thinking, I'm just going to, I've kind of overdone it already. I don't really see myself getting back on track because Christmas is right around the corner. So, you know what, I'm just going to enjoy myself as much as possible. And then in the new year, I'm really going to get at it and I'm going to change my habits for good. And I'm going to follow this really strict diet and see this incredible progress. And what that actually creates is this sense of urgency around these foods around the holidays. And that leads to this scarcity mindset thinking, okay, this is, I only have a few more days left to enjoy these cookies and these pies and all my favorite foods. So I better eat as much as I can because it's not going to last long. And I like to remind people that this is not the only time of year you get to indulge in treats. And likely you probably do enjoy some treats throughout the year. So eliminating this scarcity mindset, this sense of urgency around food, thinking that, time's a ticking and the diet starts on January 1st, will allow you to stop thinking about the holidays like this 6-week hall pass on your diet. You won't feel so compelled to be binging on these sweets all season long. Just remembering that you can enjoy these sweets and treats all year long in moderation, not just around the holidays, reminds you that you don't have to make the most of them now by just overeating them as much as possible. So it's interesting to think about the diet that you're planning on January 1st may actually be causing you to eat more poorly during the holiday season than you would otherwise. Definitely want you to enjoy all of this stuff in moderation, but remember, it doesn't have to just be until January 1st. Tip number 2 is making the in-between meals count. So I love this little meme because I think about my office holiday party that's coming up soon and all the treats that are going to happen then. But I like to remind people that there are about 87 meals between Thanksgiving and Christmas, give or take. A lot of times people just think of the holiday season as a complete wash. I see this with my clients all the time, right? Hey, Devon, the holidays are going to be nuts. You don't want to see what my eating habits look like during this time. So let's just catch up in the new year. And I always tell them that now is probably the best time to get support from your doctor or your dietitian on how to navigate these holidays in a moderate way. And so, people thinking of their Thanksgiving to Christmas or Thanksgiving to the new year as just a complete wash on their health and wellness goals is really going to stimulate that, scarcity mindset again, and that sense of urgency around these holiday foods. So in reality, there's probably about 4 or 5 special events that surround food on your social calendar between these holidays. So maybe it's your office party like we have here. Maybe it's family gatherings. Maybe you've got a kid in Girl Scouts and they're doing a holiday party. And so maybe it's 4 or 5, right? Give or take. This still leaves over 80 opportunities for healthy, balanced meals in between all of those. And the reality is balancing out those special events with these healthy, balanced meals can really get you to the end of this holiday season without feeling bloated and lethargic and just feeling like you need to start a diet, So, and when I'm talking about making these meals nutritious and balanced, what I'm really talking about is incorporating lots of fruits and vegetables when able to, having some whole grains, having some lean proteins, some plant-based proteins, those beans, legumes, incorporating all of these things into your diet, in addition to all these, special events, can help you kind of feel like mentally and physically you're still on track. It's going to help regulate digestion of all these heavy meals that are coming around, and really just keep you in the mindset of being a healthy eater all year round. Okay, so tip number 3 is to focus on the novelty aspect of these meals and not so much the portion size. So remember what makes these holiday meals special. Think about Thanksgiving, for example. We as a culture have made it into this mega monster meal, and that's how we think about it. But what's really special about this Thanksgiving is that we're giving thanks, right? We're with our loved ones. We're appreciating what we have. And we are having some of those special foods that maybe you don't get to have year round. So for me, it's my grandfather's pecan pie. It's incredible and I will never miss it. And so thinking about this meal as, an opportunity to give thanks, to spend time with loved ones, and also to have some special foods that you don't necessarily get to have year round, focusing on that novelty aspect rather than focusing on it being a huge portion size allows you to enjoy yourself, eat until you're full, and not feel like you have to overstuff yourself. Because again, you're going to have leftovers. You're going to have more Thanksgivings. Hopefully, you're going to have more holiday events coming up. So there's no need to completely overdo it on just one. This is one of my favorites. Tip number 4 is to find your highlight reel. So what are these items that you think about in July? When it's July and for some reason you're thinking about Christmas Day or New Year's Day, what are these foods that you're looking forward to? Is it, for me, it's my grandmother's sweet potato casserole. Both my grandparents are fantastic cooks. Blessed to still have them with me. And so when I'm thinking about my highlight reel, I get really excited thinking about my grandmother's sweet potato casserole, not so much the dinner roll, right? I can have a dinner roll year round. So just because it's on the table and it's available to me doesn't mean that it has any kind of special sentimental value for me. So maybe I don't have to have it. So realizing that you don't have to eat all the foods that are offered to you, and you can really just focus on the items that hold sentimental value and taste and sound delicious to you, can help you prevent overdoing it. Because again, you don't have to have everything that's at the table. Just eat the things that you want, like you would any other time of year. Tip number 5, this is another one of my favorites. It's recreating the My Plate with your leftovers. So inevitably, we have Thanksgiving dinner. Maybe you still have some leftovers in your fridge. I wish I still had some of mine. Mine are all gone. But oftentimes what I hear is one of two ways of going about these leftovers that are left over after Thanksgiving dinner or whatever. So most of us will either try to get it out of our house as quickly as possible so we don't end up eating it all, giving it away to everybody so it doesn't stay in the fridge. Or option 2 is you eat Thanksgiving dinner over and over and over again until all of those leftovers are gone. And then by the end of it on Monday, and I'm talking to some of my clients about it this week, they are again craving a salad. They feel like they've completely overdone it. They feel bloated. They feel sleepy. They just don't feel their best. Their digestion's all off. And it makes sense, right? Because typically they have pretty healthy diet that's rich in those fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, lean proteins. And then it was kind of just thrown off by these heavy meals again and again and again. It wasn't that one Thanksgiving meal that really threw you off. It was eating that Thanksgiving over and over again throughout the weekend in these large portion sizes again. So when I talk about recreating the My Plate, what I really mean is this little image right here. It was created for kids, but I think it could be a really good visual for grownups too. Try to make half of your plate some combination of fruits or vegetables. So maybe in that fruit section, you've got a little bit of cranberry sauce. Maybe in the vegetable section, you've got some green beans. Maybe in the grains, you've got either sweet potato casserole, mac and cheese, cornbread, whatever it is. I know those don't sound like the healthiest things off the top of mind, but then that last quarter could be like your ham or your turkey, whatever it is. So recreating your Thanksgiving meal in these correct portion ratios will allow you to not overdo it and make sure that you've really got balanced nutrition. I always say too that, you know, when your body breaks down the carbs, fats, and proteins from, you know, your mashed potatoes, turkey, and green beans, it doesn't know the difference necessarily between that meal and your chicken, rice, and broccoli, which we all consider to be like the epitome of health, right? So when it comes down to it, your body doesn't really know a huge amount of difference between those two foods. So it's okay to enjoy them just in the proper portion sizes and the right ratios. So when you get your leftovers, try to recreate this plate. And this is my 6th and final tip, and this is to stand your ground with food. Grandma to the party today, because I know that she likes to push cookies on us sometimes. And you know that she means well when she's trying to offer you her famous Christmas cookies, but you know your body and you know when you've had enough. And politely declining food offered to you, whether it's at grandma's house or whether it's in the office, someone made Christmas cookies or a pie or, you know, pumpkin bread, declining it, or maybe just accepting it if it was made just for you, taking it home and not eating it. It's not rude. It's really just you having respect for your body and what it needs. Now, if you want it, that's, you know, by all means, go for it. But if you really feel like, you know what, I'm already completely stuffed and, you know, I know I'm being offered this cookie, or, you know, maybe you're at the office and you're like, well, I haven't even had lunch yet, so I know eating these cookies is going to throw me off for the day. Politely declining that and standing your ground is really just an act of self-respect. I always say that unless someone is chewing your food for you, what you eat is none of pies. And so eating healthily around the holidays also can make some people feel threatened at times. They'll say, oh, relax, it's the holidays. And certainly you should enjoy and indulge around the holidays, but you know, eating in a way that's balanced, that's serving you, is really going to help you feel your best at the end of the day. And so remember that what you eat has nothing to do, what their feelings or thoughts about your eating habits really has nothing to do with you and everything to do with them and what they're going through. So just, you know, when you have people pushing food on you that you don't necessarily want, stand your ground and politely decline. Or, you know, if it's a comment about what you're eating or how you're eating, remember that it's okay to just brush it off or, you know, change the subject, because at the end of the day, It may just be stemming from their own insecurities. So just to recap these 6 tips, abandon that scarcity mindset. Remember that you're allowed to have sweets and treats all year round in moderation, and your diet doesn't have to start on January 1st. Making those in-between meals count. Remember, there are over 80 meals in between Thanksgiving and Christmas Day or New Year's. And so there's plenty of opportunities for some healthy meals in there mixed into those special holiday parties that involve food. Tip number 3 is to focus on the novelty, so not so much the portion size. Remember that it's just a special meal with special people, and that doesn't mean it has to be a gigantic one. It's just special. Tip number 4 is to focus on your highlight reel. Think about what you are looking forward to year round and prioritize that, and maybe leave the stuff that you could kind of care less for. You don't have to put it on your plate just because it's there. Tip number 5 is to recreate the My Plate with your leftovers. So try to make half of your plate produce, quarter of your plate some kind of starch, a quarter of your plate some kind of protein. That's a great way to get a balanced meal without having to focus on counting calories or anything like that. And then tip number 6 is to stand your ground when it comes to food pushers or body comments or food comments. Remember that you are in charge of you. You know what's best for you, what's going to make you feel your best. So I want you to enjoy yourself, but also remember that, you're in charge of what goes into your body. And most importantly, I want you to enjoy this time spent with loved ones. I think we all learned from last year that it's, not a given that we get to spend the holidays with our families. And so what a blessing that most of us are able to be with our families once again. And I really want you to not stress too much about this nutrition and food and weight loss or whatever your goals are, and really just focus on the time that you have together. And, there's always time for health and wellness in between all of that as well. It's not a one or the other. It can be both. And if you're feeling like you need some extra support around the holidays, or maybe you are waiting until the new year, you're just feeling really overwhelmed by the holidays, I always recommend working with the dietitian, obviously. Case Specific Nutrition, we've got locations in East Liberty, South Hills, Plum, Robinson, North Hills, Altoona. We also do virtual. We accept insurance, which is fairly unique for a small private practice like this. You can reach out to us by emailing scheduling@casespecificnutrition.com. They will run your insurance for you and get you connected with a dietitian that best suits your needs. You can also give us a call, our phone number right there. Of course, I am the director of marketing, so I always have to push our social media stuff too, which we are super active on throughout the holidays because we know that people need this extra support. So we've got a YouTube channel with lots of tips, getting through the holidays, getting through the new year. You can follow us on Instagram at Case Specific Nutrition or on Facebook. We're there for, whichever platform you love. And I just like to end by saying that eating well is a form of self-respect. That means indulging, and it also means making time for those foods that you really enjoy and are meaningful to you. So a good balance of that is really a form of self-respect. Thank you so much. And
thank you so much, Devon. This was really helpful. And I like that you were able to boil it down into 6 tips that I think are easily memorable for people. I had a couple questions actually from patients of mine who I've seen throughout the week who said, "Oh, you're doing dinner with a dietitian this week. Could you please ask, this or that question?" So one of them actually relates to the last tip that you had. This is from a patient who's a nurse, and during the holiday time at the nurse's station, they have, all kinds of cookies, and patient families are dropping off treats and all kinds of things. And because nurses are always running around, they don't always sit down and actually have a dedicated time for lunch. So the question that this patient had is, if you're walking by this constantly and you're feeling hungry, how do you resist the urge to just reach for these cookies and candies? So what would be a tip for that?
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that because my mom is a nurse. She works in labor and delivery at a hospital. She's on her feet. She's running around all day, and she experiences the same thing. People, especially around the holidays, love to treat their healthcare workers, and I'm a big proponent of that for sure. But I think this is a really good time to reincorporate that idea of the highlight reel, right? So I know that those cookies and candies might look delicious and tempting when you are, 10 hours into a 12-hour shift. But step 1 would be making sure that you are preparing adequately for that shift, right? So making sure that you have got food packed that is good to sustain you throughout that 12-hour shift, and maybe it's kind of in snack form, right? I always think about some convenient on-the-go sources of protein that you can have as a nurse, like when you've got like the 30 seconds in between patients to grab maybe a hard-boiled egg or a string cheese or a Greek yogurt. Maybe it's a granola bar, or maybe it's a piece of fruit. Having these convenient kind of like snack size meals throughout your shift can definitely help make those sweets and treats a little bit less tempting because you're not actually physically hungry. But then there's also that emotional component, right? It still looks delicious even if you've already had a meal. So that's a good time to think about your highlight reel and think, okay, well, I know that these cookies are always going to be here throughout this whole holiday season, or, whatever these treats are, there's always going to be treats here. But what am I really looking forward to this holiday season that I want to make sure that I'm saving room for? Is it your grandmother's pecan pie? Is it, maybe your husband makes a really fantastic dish for Christmas? And so thinking about, these are the things that really have sentimental value to me around Christmas, and these random cookies that are in the nurse's station don't necessarily have that value to me. So you're kind of taking the power out of those foods and not thinking of them as like a constant temptation, but really just, something extra that's always there. But step one is always making sure that you're feeling adequately through your shift. Dietitian definitely can help you with that.
That sounds great. Yeah, and it's nice to hear that your mom is a nurse, so you have insider experience into what that life is like. So
Yeah.
the next question that I had from patients actually involves eggnog, and so that always makes me harken back to the National Lampoon Christmas Vacation movie. But the question about that is, this individual enjoys eggnog and tends to drink a little bit more alcohol during this time of year than they typically do around the rest of the year. And they're wondering, should they eat less food if they're receiving more calories from alcohol? Do you have any thoughts on that?
That's an excellent question. And the short answer is no, you should not be eating less because you're drinking more alcohol. While alcohol does have calories, they're not a great source of energy. Your body doesn't really like to use it as energy. It has to go through a lot of chemical processing in your body just to be able to utilize it as energy. And it's really just an inefficient fuel source. So that said, you still need your adequate calories for the day. If you're not sure about what that looks like, again, dietitian can be helpful with that. But when it comes to drinking around the holidays, I know that can be a challenge, and that can be maybe something that you attributed your weight gain to in the past. And so maybe just projecting out, doing some projection in advance, thinking about like, what are the social events on my calendar? Do I want to drink at these? Do I not want to drink at these? How much do I want to drink? Just kind of thinking ahead a little bit to kind of budget your alcohol intake throughout the season can be helpful. So making the decision in advance instead of in the moment can kind of, take some of that temptation away. The recommended alcohol intake for individuals that do drink, for men, it's 2 drinks per day maximum. For women, it's 1 drink a day. So that doesn't mean that you can save up all 7 and have 7 in one night if you didn't drink throughout the week. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. But being mindful of those guidelines, 2 drinks for men and 1 drink for women. And then kind of thinking ahead of, maybe what nights could I do without drinking? What nights do I really want to enjoy drinking? And kind of budgeting in that way, the same as you would with your finances, really.
Right. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Budgeting your nutrition similar to finances. And that's definitely something good to keep in mind on New Year's Eve, for example.
Of course. I mean, you're not like hopefully you're not blowing your entire savings budget over Christmas shopping. So hopefully you're not also completely overdoing your calorie budget around the holidays, but you're just being a little bit more mindful while being a little more lenient than usual.
Yep. That makes sense. Okay, let me get my earbud back in. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
All right, great. Another question that I had from a patient was they are gluten-free. And so they kind of struggle around the holidays, especially, going to grandparents' house or the office party. And the question was, should they bring their own food with them? Sometimes, family members balk at that because, grandma wants to give you her special cookie. So what do you recommend for folks who have that type of dietary restriction?
Yeah, I relate to that a little bit because I'm a vegetarian, and, it took my grandparents a few years to kind of get it. Thank God they're super supportive now. Honestly, I think that bringing your own food can be a really useful tactic. calling grandma ahead of time and asking, hey, grandma, do you know what's on the menu this year? I'm just trying to plan ahead because I'm, as you know, I'm gluten-free. I was just going to see if maybe I should bring some of my own stuff, which I'm happy to do. Just connecting with people in advance, seeing maybe what the plan is. And then also being prepared with your own stuff. I travel with veggie burgers around the summertime when it's barbecue season because I don't expect people to really have something for me. So I know that that's not the most convenient thing. Unfortunately, you can't just show up like most other people, but taking control of your nutrition can be a really great thing, especially if you're gluten-free. Better to do that than to kind of go off plan and have some GI consequences as a result.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely not something fun for the holidays. And I just was thinking about something that one of my patients today told me. This is a patient who has a particular GI condition that makes eating difficult. And he was telling me that, he was considering not going to Thanksgiving dinner, but he did go. And instead of focusing on the food, he and his cousins and family members were focusing on taking family photos together and doing some posts on social media. So I was really pleased to hear that, he was able to have an enjoyable time despite not being able to eat the traditional Thanksgiving dinner. So, and I noticed that was one of your tips, was to focus on, the relationships and the family, and maybe singing carols or doing other cultural things. So I love that.
That's a great addition as well. I mean, like kind of maybe planning an activity. I know I've got some clients who aren't able to eat at all. Unfortunately, they're fed through a tube right through their stomach, and so they miss out on that social aspect of food. And I know that's huge. That's really tough. So kind of focusing on things and maybe having your support system, whoever's at that meal, kind of support you and maybe planning an activity rather than having all of the focus be on food is a great way to do it.
Yeah, that's a great idea. One year for Thanksgiving, we had a few more people than usual, and we did a holiday related Pictionary. So, the kids couldn't wait to be done with dinner because they were ready to move on to the games.
Oh my gosh.
I think that's a great idea. That's a great idea. So that was all the questions that I had from my patients, and I don't think we have any other questions from the audience. So I just want to thank you again, Devon, for being here. Excellent tips. I think we are going to post this video on social media so that hopefully people who weren't able to attend tonight can get these tips on another day at their convenience. But again, we appreciate you being here.
Of course, I always enjoy talking about this, and I'm excited to see you guys in the new year.
That sounds great. I'm sure. What's the next dinner with a dietitian topic? Is it going to be that sort of New Year resolution thing?
Yes. So the next topic is New Year, Healthier You. I know health and nutrition is a big topic of conversation around the early new year. And so I'm here to give you my insights on that because this is what I do, right? I talk about it all day long. And so hopefully I've got some great insights for you then as well.
That's wonderful. I will definitely be in attendance for that. So great. Well, we'll see you all next month for our next dinner with a dietitian. Thanks everybody for joining us.
Thanks so much. Have a good night.